What if the reason we're losing the next generation isn't because they don't care about faith? What if it's because no one ever invited them into something that's real? Hey, I'm Josh, and this is Beyond the Numbers, where we have real conversations about what healthy ministry actually looks like. Right now, we're asking a big question over the last few weeks. How do we reach the next generation? And today, we're specifically looking at Gen Alpha and the families that are raising them. Because a lot of churches are trying harder than ever with more programs, more events, more strategies, and yet they're still left asking, why isn't this working? So today I sat down with Amanda, who's been in kids ministry for almost a decade, to talk about what she's actually seeing on the ground. What's changing, what's working, and what parents really need from the church right now. And then later, we're going to bring in another kids pastor, Nathan, and he's going to weigh in on one of the most important questions in this entire conversation. The big question being how we actually build real and lasting connections with Gen Alpha. Because this isn't about better programs. More than anything, this is about reaching their hearts. Amanda, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey guys, I am Amanda. Like Josh said, I've been in kids ministry for 8 years at Relevant Church in Locust Grove, Georgia. I oversee kids from 6 weeks through fifth grade, so it's kind of my realm. And so I've been doing this for 8 years, almost nine now, and it's changed over the last 8 years. So I'm excited to have this conversation about what this looks like to be in kids ministry for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. I know it can be a hectic schedule sometimes, and you said you got kids of your own, so you're juggling ministry, kids, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to jump in, kind of setting the stage for this conversation. It's based off of a few videos that we've done that just talk about really understanding the heart of the next generation. And so you mentioned how there has been kind of a shift and a change with this generation. So what do you think, if you could narrow it down to like one thing, what do you think the biggest cultural shift you've seen within Gen Alpha that's really changing how the church needs to approach them?
I think the biggest shift I've seen is all of the AI. It's been so crazy. My kids, my personal kids, so I see this in my own home. I have a 5-year-old, and he's never going to know a life without AI. And all of the things that comes, this technology just kind of influxing all of our children. And this generation never knows a time without just full technology, and also technology that you cannot be a person and fully interact with a computer, which I think is so crazy.
I mean, I've been around for a while, but I remember talking with students about how, like, with Facebook, I was like, you guys are going to be like the first generation that, for the most part, your entire life is pictures for people to access online. Like, but the idea of AI is just, I mean, that's a whole different ballgame there. Yeah.
And like I said, I have a 5-year-old, and I mean, just technology, not even AI, because we are a little careful about what he's able to access at 5. But technology in general, he can watch something for 2 seconds and he can do it on a phone or anything. I mean, he's so smart. If someone's playing a game, he'll watch them and literally can just pick it up and go. And so I think in this world, what I've seen, and with our kids and our kids ministry, the knowledge is going to be at their fingertips. All of the knowledge they can ever want, they'll be able to just pick it up. I mean, of course, we walk around with a cell phone. It's a walking computer of anything you want. And now with AI, you can get on ChatGPT and say, give me a sermon message on this, and it'll pop you out a whole message. So the kids are going to have the knowledge if they want it. They'll have any knowledge they want at their fingertips. So I think that has created a little bit of a different dynamic between church and this generation. because they can find any information they want about Jesus, about the Bible. Now we are called to shape that
Mm-hmm.
into what's correct. Because I mean, I don't know if you use Chat GPT on the regular, but I'll type something in and then be like, I don't think that's a Bible verse. Let's go check that.
I did have one, I think it was like at one point we were asking like some legal advice thing, and it's like, well, you're talking about this section thing here. And I was like, let me just look that up. And I looked it up and it was completely different. And I was like, that is not the subsection that you're talking about. It's like, my bad. And I was like, wait, it just said like, my bad. What? Like, okay. So yeah, like that knowledge is there, but it's kind of the wisdom and how to apply that knowledge, as well as,
I mean, sometimes you can be so set on something and then not even realize that it's like the wrong thing. And so I think kind of like what you were talking about there, you know, they have all this knowledge at their fingertips. They'll have access to like more information than any generation in history, but that doesn't mean that they'll have the truth, you know?
Yeah, I think figuring out how to teach and kind of integrate, I think in kids ministry, it's really different. So we try to make sure that we're utilizing technology based on age appropriate development. So we're not using as much video. We have, for example, this is one way we utilize technology with kids. We have Nintendo Switches in our preteen room. So our third, fourth, and fifth graders, our leaders will sit down and play with them. But in our kids ministry, we do not allow cell phones.
mm-hmm.
So it's one of the things that like we're trying to bridge that in our building of like what is appropriate in the room where they're exposed to technology. Their friends have video games. We want to get on their level, but in a safe environment here. So I think navigating that for sure, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting thing to have to tackle, but I love that you guys are utilizing it, but you're also having those clear and safe boundaries with those kids. Have you been able to, you know, for the bit that you've utilized, what have you kind of seen that works with some of the kids?
Yeah, I think what we use now with Nintendo Switches and video games in rooms, it's more just connection, kind of breaking down some walls. I think, you know, used to, I know when I was in youth and kids ministry, it was like go outside and throw a ball at each other or something. You know, you were doing crazy things, playing crazy games. I think now some of that, like the video games kind of help break the walls down. So if a leader sits down and grabs their controller and is playing Mario with the kid, they can now have a conversation about Mario. And then the kid's like, oh, they kind of know, you know, some of the things that I know. Now, the next week, it's kind of starting to break down some barriers of,
awesome.
And one thing I think we're seeing with the technology everywhere is while the technology is great, there's a little bit of a relational breakdown just across. So it's a little bit harder to connect relationally because they're so enmeshed in the technology and they're used to having conversations via text message or, you know, things like that. We're not having this in person. I have to look at you. So now if I'm playing a video game, I'm looking at a screen. I'm not requiring you to look over at me in the face. So it kind of breaks that wall down. And also I'm doing something that you enjoy. And so I do think that we've seen a little bit of kind of some kids warming up to the possibility of, okay, I'll have a real conversation with that person because they now came to a level that I like. And I think that technology really is the barrier breaker for these kids. Unfortunately, I hate to have to be like, okay, we're going to play this video game before I can have a real conversation. But I just think that's what they love. That's what they see. And that's what their friends have. Phones and video games and tablets and all the things. So
yeah, and instead of pushing all that stuff away, you're using it as an asset to build that relational bridge. And as you said, with all the different technology stuff that they have, a lot of them aren't used to that face-to-face interaction. And so I love that your church is kind of, you're like, hey, while you come here, we're going to meet you where you are to build that relationship. And that's really awesome. So kind of jumping around here when we go to the parents, because, you know, you got Gen Alpha, but, you know, for these younger kids, there's a whole lot of parental interaction. maybe even more so than sometimes with the students or with, young adults. When it comes to reaching the parents of Gen Alpha, like what's one key that you're looking for from the church that's different from years ago?
Yeah, I think parents are looking to us when we talk about technology in general. I think they're looking to us to be like, what do we do? They want us to kind of help them bridge that gap. I think they're coming in like, okay, do I give my kid a phone? When do I do that? I mean, they have so many questions that's so different than when we were younger. And I think looking at that and kind of partnering with them and saying, hey, this is what the world looks like culturally. We are called to live counterculturally. So sometimes that does mean, I mean, your kid doesn't get a phone and everybody else has one. But how do we healthily integrate some of these things that I think, you know, video games or this next playground thing. I don't know if you've seen that, but
I
our
have
kids
not,
love that.
no.
It's like a Wii with your body. You like
Oh,
do all the
wow.
movements. And my kids think it's the best thing ever. Like you can run in place and we're getting a workout. And so some things like that that are like, okay, this is appropriate for a kid.
Mhm.
And then I think just in general, you said what's different than it used to be. And I actually think what is the same.
Yeah.
And maybe we've missed, parents want that personal connection for their kids. They want people to know their kids and to love their kids and to want to pour in. And so I think they're looking to the church to say, help me. Like,
Yeah.
this is so different. I need people that love my child like Jesus does, not
Mhm.
like the world does. And so coming in and saying, how can we love your child well? How can we partner with you in this crazy parent? I mean, I'm a parent now. I wasn't when I started this journey of kids ministry. So I think, um, I think I'm sometimes like, okay, help me. Like I'm looking at my pastor, like, I don't know what I'm doing either. We're all learning this being a parent for the first time. And I
Mhm.
think parents really just want to look at the church and say, this world is crazy. And my kid does have every bit of knowledge at their fingertips, good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah.
It's all there. So now help me parent my child and love my child well and point them to Jesus. How do I do that in this world? And so I think some of that is the same as it's always been. I think
Yeah.
parents have always wanted their kids to find those people.
So what are you doing to kind of bridge that with the parent? Like what in your church and you as a leader, like what have you done to kind of see that interaction happen with the parents to maybe even encourage it a little bit?
yeah, so I think as a kids director in our church, my goal is to equip my volunteers. So training volunteers to love kids well. And what does that look like? How do we partner with families? How do we show up at baseball games so kids
Mhm.
see us there? How do we break down barriers? And I will say, some of these kids, it's hard. Like
Mhm.
to break those walls down is difficult. And what I always tell my leaders is, your hardest kids are the ones that probably need you the most.
That's good.
And we sit in these rooms and you have kids that are, whatever's happening, cussing you out or or like not getting in the back of the room and putting their hood on and sticking their head down, um, or just coming in and running the whole service. You don't
Mhm.
know if they heard the name of Jesus at all. But consistently showing up time over time, I think, and showing them like, hey, we're here for you. And I think, my job is to equip my leaders.
Mhm.
And so doing that as best I can, kind of training them and consistently saying, your hardest kid is the one that needs you. Your hardest kid is the one that needs you the most. They all need you, but they need you the most. And I think looking for kids that have those walls built and trying to figure out, okay, are video games your level? Like, is that where we need to start? Like, maybe we do just sit. Is it we need to sit in color? Because some of our kids, it might not be technology. It might just be you just need something to start breaking down the barriers. Let's find something you love. And some of that comes from like sitting with a parent and saying, hey, what are the things your kid likes to do? We've had some of our most difficult kids play baseball. I'm like, okay, on Saturday morning, we're all going to the baseball field because they need to see us showing up when it's not a Sunday morning. And I think just figuring out what that is, that's not easy for everyone. It's my job to do that. So I can show up. I get paid to be in ministry, so that's fine. But I have volunteers that literally they do ministry just as much as I do every day with these kids and show up at games and show up on Sundays. And so I think what I could tell churches and children's pastors and pastors in general, these kids just want, and the parents just want people to show up for them and to just partner. I mean, we're all learning. Every kid is so different and every parent and situation is so different, but we're all learning how to do this. And our main goal is just loving people like Jesus and pointing them to him. And so we have a saying in our church, we want kids to never know a day without knowing Jesus. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be saved at 6 weeks. That means that our leaders pointed them to Jesus from 6 weeks old. So what does that look like in each stage? And so I think that, we repeat that often. We want these kids to never know a day without knowing Jesus. Their knowing Jesus may be knowing me and seeing Jesus through me. And it may not be I'm saved, I've gotten baptized, or, whatever that looks like. But it will definitely mean like we know who Jesus is because other people showed Jesus.
Yeah, and I think for some people it's that before they follow Jesus, they have to experience him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
One of the things that Amanda kept coming back to was this idea of connection, getting on their level and building trust and then showing up consistently. But that raises a bigger question. What does that actually look like to build a real heart level connection with Gen Alpha? So I reached out to another kids pastor to speak into this very topic and jump in on this discussion. Nathan, I'd love to get your perspective on this.
Sure, yeah. My name's Nathan Stang. I am currently the kids ministry team lead at First Church in Owasso, Oklahoma. I've been here for 10 years, and my wife and I, we have 7 kids. Yeah, I'm at a church that's gone through a lot of growth over the last 5 years too, so we've had to constantly reevaluate how we do things.
For those churches that feel like it's just another program that we need or another event, beyond those things, like what is the most important element in building like real heart level connection with Gen Alpha and their parents?
Yeah, and I love this question because, the programs and events, they are important, I think. They're, sometimes I think especially negativity towards large churches, and they just care about the numbers, all that stuff. And I've been there. I've been in really big churches. I've been in really small churches. I understand the criticism. But programs and events are tools. And anytime that you have any number of people come into your church, whether it's 20 or 20,000, like you have to have those things. They're tools that help you structure the ministry that you're doing, but they're not necessarily the ministry itself. The ministry always I haven't seen this change in my almost 20 years of doing this. Ministry is always still happening life on life, but you are right. It's not just about the programs. It's not just about the events. You can have really quality events and programs and not be doing ministry. It can turn into a concert. It can turn into a show that you're just inviting people to watch. And so as I think about that question, it really came down to 2 things for me. And the first thing is just the word presence. For this generation, but really for any generation, I think the idea that there's going to be someone there for them that will show up again and again on their good days, on their bad days, no matter what they look like, no matter what they act like, that we have someone that can show up for them and know who they are, to be real with. And that's something that we value a lot in our ministry. How our church awesome. Does that is on our midweek programming. Our midweek programming runs during the school year, and it is the discipleship stuff. It is the bigger, deeper discipleship stuff. We have teaching and we play games and do stuff, but these kids are coming back each week because they have a leader that cares about them. It's the same leader every week who invests in that group oftentimes for multiple years, like over the course. We have some leaders in our church who go from kindergarten all the way up through high school. And so that's really the first thing that comes to mind for me is someone who's willing to show up again and again. And the nice thing about that is that doesn't require huge church budget. That doesn't require awesome programs or fancy lighting systems or anything. It just requires someone who cares. The second word that comes to mind is empowerment. And the reason I say that is because if you're just asking, there are so many things in this world just asking people to show up and watch the show. Kids have all sorts of options, and their options are better funded than your church is. They have better equipment than your church does. They have more engaging personalities than your church does. You're not going to win that ball game, and I don't think the church should try to win that ball game. But what kids really want is they want to be involved. They want kids, students, whoever, even adults, they need to be told that your presence here matters and that this is something that you can be a part of. And so we really strive to do that as well. We want to have avenues for our kids, even being young, to be able to invest in their church community. And that's actually one of our 4 key values. We talk about loving God's people and being invested in your church family and using your gifts to do big things. And so how that works practically for us is we actually have a worship team of 4th and 5th graders who come in for monthly trainings.
Awesome.
They do a lot of our worship stuff for us. So they run computers and technology for us. They run the lighting systems. They run the soundboard. They also get up on stage and they lead their peers in worship. They read scripture from stage. A lot of times people are afraid of that because it's going to be messy. It's not going to be, it's not going to look perfect. And what we've just said as a church is, we are about excellence, but excellence doesn't mean perfection. And so are there times where a kid is swinging around in their chair back and forth and their knee hits the power button and everything shuts down on a Sunday? It happens. It makes a big difference to have a 5th grader up there and have our kindergartners see these 5th graders leading others in worship than it does to have me up there dancing around. Could I do a better job?
Yeah.
Certainly. But is it, do they need me to be up there? Or do they need to see their peers up there? And I think they need to see their peers up there so that they can know that their gifts and the things that God has blessed them with that are usable in the church and that there's a place for them to use them in the church. And how that's kind of developed, our church runs 3 services on Sundays. And in our children's ministry, we actually run 5 services because the way our building's set up, I can do simultaneous services on 2 different sides. Our final service of the day is almost entirely run by teenagers now, and many of them have been through our worship team stuff. They lead from stage, they lead communion, they host our video lesson stuff. Like, they do a lot of different things. We empower them and we trust them and we coach them. We don't just leave them out to dry, but like we're there alongside them, but we want to come alongside and let them use their gifts. And so, it's been really cool to watch that grow. And again, this wasn't anything that took money or fancy equipment. It was just empowering other leaders. And so we're really big on that. So again, just to kind of re-say what I've already said, it's about the presence. It's about the empowerment. And, I was recently at a conference. The president of that organization, Jason French, was talking to us about Gen Alpha and the things they need. And one of the statements he made that's really just stuck with me is he basically said that if your service is so polished that a 10th grader can't hold a microphone during it, then maybe you have an idol and not a service. And that really hit me.
That's good.
That hit me really hard. And he went on to just talk about this, and he's right. He's like, our kids' schools are asking a lot out of them. And he says, as a parent, I know what my kids' schools want from them. My kids' sports teams are asking a lot out of them. And I know what my kids' coaches want out of them. He's like, I'm not always sure what my kids' church wants out of them. And
Mhm.
that just really stuck with me. And he's right. And if we're not empowering this generation, um, not only to be in a ministry, but to actually do ministry, then we're really missing the boat, and they're going to go find it somewhere else. Like they're going to
Yeah.
use their gifts and skills somewhere else. And so I want to make sure that here where I have influence, that I am empowering, I'm being present, and we are helping kids um, to really use their gifts for the Lord, because gosh, just the eternal impact that can have on a family system,
Yeah.
on an individual, is incredible to watch. And it doesn't take that much time. It doesn't take that much money. It just takes caring and investing and being there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like for those kids that are doing the stage thing, others may look at it and be like, oh, they're on the stage. It might create more of a hunger, but on the leadership side, those are mentor opportunities. Those are opportunities for students to be ministering to other students. And I mean, those things that last so much longer than some of the other. I mean, let's be honest, there are sometimes those things make a bigger impact than the sermon.
Right.
And it's really taking all those things that have been taught to them and living it out. So that's amazing that you guys are doing that and really being intentional about that.
Yeah. And just like you said, I mean, I wasn't a typical youth group kid growing up. I didn't go to lots of that stuff until I was a little bit older. I didn't really come to Christ until I was 17 years old. And so, but I don't remember youth group lessons from my pastor. And I'm sure he was great. I'm sure he spent a lot of time, uh, working on that stuff, but it just, like, that stuff isn't sticking with me. What sticks with me
Mhm.
is my small group leader, who, even though I was super inconsistent from 6th grade to 12th grade, stuck with our group of boys and
Yeah.
would come back every year and say, if you'll still have me back, I'll stick with you until graduation. And we would always say yes. Even to our volunteers, I'll tell them, I was like, nothing you say today matters. I'm pretty blunt with it. I'm like, there is no amazing thing that you're going to pull out of your brain that you're going to say this day that is going to change that kid's life forever. But what will change that kid's life forever is that you're here next weekend, and the weekend after that,
Mhm.
and the weekend after that. That's what we're going for as a ministry. We're just trying to engage Gen Alpha, or any generation that comes along, with that message, because the more we can get the gospel into them, the more transformative power it can have in their lives. And we're going to do that through our presence and through empowering them to go and do actual ministry things.
And if we get that right, everything else starts to follow. If this conversation helped you or challenged you in the way that you think about ministry, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep having these conversations just like this, make sure that you're subscribed. Now, Amanda, before we go, if someone's in your area or they want to connect and see your kids' ministry firsthand, where can they find you?
Yeah, it's Relevant Church in Locust Grove, Georgia. We are right in a big building on Highway 42 if you're close to us. And we have 4 services every Sunday. We have 8, 9, 20, 10, 40, and 12, and we would love to have you.
I want to give a big thank you to both Amanda and Nathan for being part of this conversation and giving up their time and just sharing a bit of their wisdom. And thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of Beyond the Numbers. Next week, we're going to have more conversations. We're going to continue these as we look to change the way that we see and interact with a generation. Thank you guys for joining me, and thank you guys as we work together to grow beyond the numbers.